Hello, brother or sister. I'm just gonna address you as brother from now on. Today, I invite you to learn from Stephen King. I'm here to give you my key takeaways on this book, Stephen King on Writing a Memoir of the Craft. So, in case you don't know me and you think I'm just some random guy, I am trying to write a book and I am trying to learn from a few people. And this guy just happened to be one of them. I have seen the movie It, and I recently heard that he wrote it. I kind of couldn't sleep really well that night after watching it. I even remember vividly imagining a clown in my bedroom. So, enough with that. Let's actually get to the actual story. No, not the story. Today's content. So, I'm gonna tell you something. Even if you are going to watch this video whole way through and learn a lot of things from this video, I still suggest picking this book up. One, because it's short, 300 pages at max, buddy. And two, because you can actually read it through a road trip, and that's exactly what I did. And four, because the art of seduction is better employed in a book than in a YouTube video that is supposed to be unfiltered for purposes of gaining knowledge. Okay, well, that's fine. Now let's get into the stuff, the good stuff. Reflection number 1. In words, less is more. So, what he's trying to say here is, there is no need for unnecessary euphemism. Say something like this sentence: he excreted in the public toilet could just be he took a shit in the public toilet. Or, in words, less is more could even imply in situations like this. Instead of just dumping exposition, which is basically knowledge of your world's backstory, you use less stuff from the past and you slowly keep the mystery building on and going on in that direction. In words, less is more everywhere. You can actually apply this everywhere. Draft 1 is you telling your story to yourself, and draft 2 and onwards are you eliminating all the things that are not story. What does he mean in this sentence? Well, he essentially means that draft 1 basically means you should let all the shit come to the paper, and draft 2 is when you take the shit out. So it's basically like when you write away, you let the paper rip in the first one or burn. And in the second one, you essentially stop doing that and you figure out where the story is in the words. And then you separate it from that. And third, do not overcomplicate shit for the reader. Again, unnecessary euphemism is shit, as he says. I totally agree to this one. And yes, what does this mean? What do not overcomplicate shit for a reader? That's just way too plain. What do you mean by overcomplicating? Say, I wanted to communicate a very complex ideal. Do not compare me with this guy, okay? Because he's on a totally different level as compared to me. Okay. Maybe from Don's shoes, I thought I'd see what he'd seen. What would I do if I were he and I had lost my people to some random dude? Well, for starters, I'd find a weak ruler, and realization struck. How did he scale our difference? I beat him enough times before he knew he grew to be this mammoth. Okay. How is that supposed to relate? Yeah. So what I'm basically trying to say is, if there's a simple way and there's a hard way that makes you look like a diplomat, do not take the diplomat route. Take the simplistic route. Like, instead of saying the sky reflected the austral lights in its appearance as tints shifted from purple to blue to orange to whatever the hell the color there was in the sky. Instead of saying that, just say in the violet sky. maybe that other description would fit certain other occasions, but yes. And third, he actually gives us a toolbox. And in this thing, he wants us to provide, he talks about grammar not being everybody's cup of tea. I mean, you don't have to be too much of a diplomat to tell a story. You just need to have a story to tell a story. So grammar isn't all that necessary, and it isn't even all that hard. And he talks of not worrying about it, because it's only a if you can thingy. Okay, that was bland. But it's basically like talent, all that shit, verbal comprehension, who needs that? He just says practice can make better here too. Paras are the beats of the rhythm of your song. If you look at the book, like any book that you're writing or reading, you will find that there are recurring themes, just like beats in a rhythm, like beep bop, beep bop, beep bop, beep bop. In these situations, there's like a beep bop, beep bop, beep bop, beep bop. Okay, that was cringe, but yes, that's the idea. You don't think of each word you're putting as like the beat. You just think of it as the component of the wave. So it's like this. In that one paragraph I showed you earlier, maybe you can actually see that there is no physical thinking behind where should I end the paragraph, where should this one start. It's basically like, how can I carry over the mystery from here to here? Okay. This is the two things I remember reading from the toolbox. And yes, he does talk about writing in active tense. For example, if you said, the corpse was carried to the cemetery, you just specify the action and you just specify the object. It's basically an object-oriented sentence. That is what a passive tense is. And this guy, Stephan King, Steve King, Steph, we should call him Steph, but that will be a MatPat reference. But anyway, we're gonna call him Steph for now. The corpse was carried to the cemetery. Boring. John carried the corpse to the cemetery. Now you have a little bit of an attachment to the action that is being... I am using passive tense. He also calls out the passive tense as something that only the pussy writers use. What does he mean by that? Well, it's basically something that makes your work sound diplomatic, and if you just keep using passive tense overall, your stuff starts to look like it rots. If you want to convey the loneliness of the sentence, maybe, and if you want to glorify the corpse, maybe, but most of the time, active tense does the job. That is real logic behind this. It's basically like this. Your people who come to read the book come to look at the character's actions and the story that is something they're going through. They're not here to look at the corpse being carried to the cemetery. They're here to look at John carrying the corpse to the cemetery. And the next thing is, stop using adverbs too much. He said mockingly, look who it is. My cousin he be, huh? Well... Oh, God. Exposing yourself is not as easy as you think it is. But yeah. So, my writing style, I think I like Christopher Paolini's writing style really well. So, I do shit like this. It was my cousin Don, I said to him mockingly. Well, if it isn't my brother who'd lost his homeland... I don't know whether I should take that adverb out or not. He just says stop using adverbs too much. And it's basically because it makes stuff sound cheesy. How would the weight carry if I said, he said, look who it is. My cousin he be, huh? That's better than saying, he said mockingly, look who it is. My cousin he be, huh? It's based on impact. That's what I think it is. And then he talks about writing as fast as you can and being regimented in your schedule. Like you should try to finish the first draft within 3 months. I thought since J.K. Rowling takes a year, so I should take a year for my first draft. And I was thinking maybe 200 pages, it might end off early in like, say, 3 months. And I think it is totally fine right now. It's because first there is a mountain and then there is none, he says. Like, take a look at this, bro. Like, you get this sudden motivation to do shit, and that motivation is basically comprised of your story in your head and all the characters doing certain shit and your attachment to those characters. It's basically like this. If you meet a new person, like say you're like going across the walk and you see another guy amidst the crowd beside you in the platform, he talks to you like, "Hey bro, what's your name?" You'll be interested in him for the next 2 days or 3 days or so, and then you'll forget. So if you take too much time for a novel, your interest in writing it fades. And that really shows in quality. And the other thing is to be regimented, like working in a place where nobody can actually disturb you anyhow, any much, anytime that you work there. You just sit there and write away. This is basically the time when you let the paper rip, burn with fire, even with your pencil, and then the next stage is where you refine it. You don't need to give two shits about refining it now. Well, that definitely hits hard. The 3 skills he talks of. This is basically when you sit down and want to write. There is narration, there is description, and there is dialogue. Description and dialogue, I kind of got my style from Christopher Paolini. I don't know if he's a great writer. A lot of people are still in debate about that. But I do think he got himself a good story with Aragon. Because even I wouldn't actually normally read a 800-page book. I don't know what act of seduction it was, but I did read the Inheritance one. Yeah, it's like that. And we could be talking about description, dialogue, and narration all day long, but here's like everything in a TLDR form. In plot, don't plot at all. Let Mother Nature play with your characters and frict with them however she may decide to do so. This was essentially my summarization of this. Let's kind of like pull it back and expand it a little bit, shall we? Plot. What the hell is plot? Why do you even plot? Well, it's because you may think you don't have a direction your story is going in. I don't necessarily agree with. Okay, my guy, where were we? We were in narration, if I recall correctly. So let's actually talk about narration. What does this actually mean? So in a story, you may have certain plans for your characters. Like say, something that ought to look like, where did that piece of junk go? You know what, screw it, let me show you the digitalized version. I don't necessarily agree with him on this one. I think plotting does serve a place, but I'm a guy who's published 0 novels and he's published many. You can think who to trust. It's basically like this. I'm just telling you, if you want to take a story a certain way, you can just go that way if you want to. But if you don't have any idea as to how you want to take the story, then there you go. So plotting, it's basically a pussy's way to keep order in check, he says. The other way to go about it is essentially thinking about having the story in a timeline in your head. This is basically like this. In a certain situation, you are in the character's head and you think what could happen next. You are allowed to do that. But try to prevent yourself from going overboard with structure and writing out every single chapter in gross amounts of detail like this moron has done previously in his early days. These are times when I'd procrastinate really badly. Yeah. The moron I'm referring to, of course, is past me. Now I am present me. I am enlightened. And yeah, that is about the basic parts of narrating. In plot, do not plot. let Mother Nature have her way with your characters. And show don't tell is the next thing. Like, don't directly throw shit at their faces. Let them infer. Like, the idea behind this is as following. If I told you that this character, he is a loser and he is stuck in his basement and all he does is play video games all day. He also occasionally orders Doritos and also occasionally orders chips and drinks root beer with all of that. You'd be disgusted by the amount of detail I went therein. But if I told you John was not in his correct mind as of then, he took the lotion that was put on his smooth table and he put it on his hand. He then cried out, "They don't know me, son. I'll beat them next time. I'll shoot them right in their face through this computer." If I told you that, wouldn't that be way more interesting? No, I should finish it, shouldn't I? And he puts the lotion wherever it should have went and continues with his daily routine. Yeah, that's kind of a weird way to narrate, but showing instead of telling is also a very powerful tool in cinematography. I enjoyed learning cinematography at one point of time, so I'm kind of aware of this a little bit, but I'm kind of bad at it even sometimes. Show don't tell, don't throw shit at their faces, let them infer. I told you, right? From that scene where the lotion was being sprayed onto his hand, you can actually imagine what he's going to be doing with the lotion and what kind of a person he is, instead of me telling you that he's a loser straight up. And the description part. Description is basically like this situation. Let's actually take a Christopher Paolini line. Do I recall something? Yes, I do, actually. The line is, the sapphire adorned castle burned with flames as at Saphira's arrival. Maybe something like that. It's basically something that should be used in context of the story. If I just told you that the empty room was populated by this guy, that does draw a vision in your head. So it's basically like drawing, but you're doing it with letters. And when you draw, you just don't draw everything. That would be glorifying. You simplify. And that is essentially what you must do when you write as well. And in simple terms, it's basically opening your mind's eye and writing away the initial stuff, the relevant stuff that will help you identify that person, that will help you identify with the situation, relate with the situation, and so on. And then dialogue. Speak truth from the mouths of your characters and listen and transcribe. So what do I mean when I say speak truth from mouths of your characters? It's basically like this. Imagine I had a girlfriend. No, let's just say lover. Imagine I had a lover. No, that's a bad example. Okay, let's just say there's a random girl and you talk with her. There's a certain way she would talk as compared to when you would talk with a man, right? Like, there's a difference. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? I'm not trying to... No. You know what? I take that back. I am trying to do that. So, there is a difference between the way everybody perceives the world. And from their perspective, you need to see the world when you're writing. Instead of just doing this in plot, don't plot at all. When you're doing that, what you should be doing is not speaking words from the mouths of the characters from the plot that you're making. You should speak from the mouths of your characters and they drive the plot. Oh yeah, that's a good one actually. And when you speak truth from the mouths of your characters, what you're essentially doing is this. If a small child is to talk to an adult, and he's a very cocky little brat, let's just say, how would he talk? I'd like to imagine that he'd be very cocky. That is just one part of it. But let's also imagine that he's talking in whatever which way he chooses to. Let's put the dialogues out right now. Hey uncle, can you get me the ball that's on your balcony?
Little brat, you hit it?
Yes. But you know what? I'll hit another one if you don't throw it downstairs. And then the old man threw it down, it hit the child's head, and the child left for the hospital as soon as he was struck by a coma and the ball at the same time. That was bad dialogue. Maybe bad dialogue, but you get my point. No, that was not bad dialogue. That was sick dialogue, actually. And the second draft is the next thing he goes on to talk about. These 3 skills, if you hone them in, you'll get to good level in no time. The second draft. In the second draft, what do? The first draft, you tell yourself the story. And in second drafts and onwards, you eliminate everything that's not the story. We already talked about that, right? Well, there is more. If you think of your book as a song, you will find that each paragraph can be a beat. And when you tune the beats properly, the book feels a lot better. By that, I mean find the symbolism, find the parallels, and kind of like accentuate them in the second draft and so on. And yeah, and make the story a coherent prose, all that bullshit I already told you about that. And at the end, find your ideal reader and give them a copy before you actually start making the second draft. He says that this will help you, and his wife actually helped him too, and he talks about this in the story. Your ideal reader. Let me define the ideal reader of my book. So my ideal reader would be an adventurous soul who doesn't want to escape reality necessarily, but wants to feel lost in a bigger world, like I do. So that's the kind of guy I'm going for. And I also want to look for more in that person. Number one, I want to nurture that spirit. That's like the goal of each story. But I don't stay hell-bent on it. He actually talks about this. Hell, I didn't even write this out. So basically, he talks about this. Each story doesn't need to have a thematic message at the end. Like, if the characters and Mother Nature, they decide to give you a moral, well, go ahead and take it. But if they don't decide to give you a moral, you can just let it up for debate. This will actually spur more conversations, and from those conversations will arise a lot of interesting shit. What do I mean by interesting shit? You could mean a lot of things by that, but in specific, here's what I mean. Like, at the end, you just end it off at a cliffhanger and you don't give them the message. They actually will think about it. Like, what should we do if an apocalypse happens on Earth? What should we do? Should we actually go there, do this? Should we bring back humanity? Should we get back to technology? Should we do this? So that will actually put them through more thinking after the book is over than if you did not. So that will make stuff very, very relevant. And in dialogue, there is more too. So you know how listen and transcribe works, nah? It's basically like this. In real life, you have a few characters around you. They are called human beings. And from those human beings spur a lot of words. You can actually take from the human beings and you can modify their personalities in whichsoever you may want to, where you may want to do so, and you will end up with a pretty good piece of dialogue. Like, say, I wanted to talk from the mouth of Master Wu. I can actually do that. Student, my disciple, you have come to me for wisdom, yet I have none for you. You must travel the world, wander, and learn more than me. As they say, you, the student, must surpass the master. That sounded cringe, but no, good. Yeah. We've done all of this stuff. Once you've given the ideal reader a copy and they've read it, what you've got to do is you've got to work on it on the second draft. So you have to do this before the thing. And yeah, that's all that he talks of. Just kidding. He also talks that you don't need writing classes, you just need to sit and write more. By writing more and talking to your ideal reader more, you will get to a better place. And he says this with a lot of examples. Like, did William Shakespeare go to any literature classes? Most likely not. Did anybody who writes really well go there? Maybe some people could have, but most haven't. And he talks of a reason for this. Seminars, they are for positive feedback. Your ideal reader, he's just gonna go and yap about whatever the hell you're gonna give him. So, seminars, waste of time, because you learn nothing there. And if you want to learn writing, he says a cabin in the woods is the best way to go. And then a critique session at the end with your so-called friends or rivals. Make sure that the criticism you're getting isn't vague from your ideal reader. Make sure they kind of find faults here and there. And at the end, he talks about one more thing, which is publishing. He talks of getting a good agent. He doesn't say how, he doesn't say when, he doesn't say how the hell you have to, but he just specifies this one book called Writer's Market. And that's the end of this video as a story. Market. He also says that getting a good agent can be key. So you have to look for it, he says. And he also tells you that you don't have to be an expert because everybody's looking for the hot new young writer who shows a little bit of promise and can have a bestseller. Okay, all that's done. All that's nice. That's the end of this video. And here's a bye from me. Buy the letters. And here's a bye from me from my fist. My name is Monish, this channel's name is Monster. For more unfiltered videos like this on writing or whatever thing you choose to learn, check out the channel. It has a lot of them. Bye.